elections certainly interest us. The integrity of elections is something that's been discussed in the state, in the country, and we have State Representative Rick Saccone with us this morning on WILK from Allegheny, Washington, to talk about something he'd like to see in order to protect the integrity of the elections. So, Rick, thanks so much for taking the time to be with us. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me on.
It's our pleasure. Now, discuss why you think we need House Bill 171, which you have introduced, and it's met with some success so far. We know it's not a done deal yet, but you'd like to see people who are able to cross boundaries to be poll watchers, right? That's the essence of it?
Right, exactly. And remember now, poll watchers are invited by the candidate. So the only people who can be poll watchers are people that are invited by the candidate. They're given a certificate from the county by the candidate that he gets from the county. And the party gets to invite one poll watcher too. And each candidate can only invite 2 poll watchers. And the poll watchers, only one at a time, can go inside the polling place. And remember, they cannot interact with voters, so there's no intimidation or anything like that. They can only interact with the judge of elections. If they see some irregularities, they can bring it to the attention of the judge of elections. So that's the duty of the poll watchers. And my bill doesn't change any of that. That's always been the duty of poll watchers.
All right. So where do you see the flaw here, or what kind of things have been suggested to you that you believe need to change this?
So by removing the arbitrary line of the county line as being where a poll watcher can come from, it broadens the pool of people that you can choose from. And as I said, my county is one of many races that straddles county lines. And so, as I mentioned, you might not have heard it because my phone was breaking up, but my brother or my wife can watch a poll in Allegheny County, but a quarter mile down the road at my polling place in Washington County, they can't watch a poll because they're not from Washington County. So it doesn't make sense to have an arbitrary line dividing where we draw poll watchers from. This would just remove that line and say they could come from any county because, if you're a registered voter, lawfully registered in the state of Pennsylvania, you should be able to go in and watch the process and make sure that there are no irregularities.
You have a release that you sent out that mentions hundreds of ineligible immigrants illegally voted from 2006 through 2017 in Philadelphia elections. And that information is attributed to a Philadelphia city commissioner named Al Schmidt. How might your idea work better in regards to that particular situation, which is mentioned in the release?
Well, as I say, my poll watchers can observe and report many different violations. I've addressed about 7 different violations that can be from the very simple thing that I've witnessed personally as I've been a poll watcher myself, of going into a polling place and seeing a candidate's poster up in the polling place, which could influence voting. All the way up to actually people punching the buttons for voters who come in and telling them which ones to vote. Poll watchers can see that, and then they can bring it to the judge of elections' attention and so forth. It doesn't solve all of the problems of voter fraud and voter influence and irregularities, but it can help solve many of them. It's also a great deterrent to people doing things outside the boundaries of the rules and regulations if they know there are poll watchers there that are actually watching. So that's the crux of the whole thing. Is, if you believe that there are voting irregularities in the polling places, you should want this bill. If you don't believe, if you're a voter fraud denier and you think there's no voter fraud going on in Pennsylvania, you should still want this bill because poll watchers can prove that in your polling place. They can say, look, we were there, we watched it, there was no irregularities. The process is secure. So this shouldn't be political at all. This should be a bipartisan effort to make sure that our voting stations are secure and everyone's following the rules.
In your sense, is it a bipartisan effort? Do you have colleagues who say, you know what, we agree with this?
No, unfortunately, the bill was voted straight party lines. All the Democrats voted against it. And I really felt bad about that because I made a plea to them to say, look, this is not about party. This is about making the process sound. So let's vote together on this. This is something we should all agree on. no matter what side of the issue you come down on. But it turned into a partisan vote, and I'm sorry to hear that. And I hope we can continue to educate. And as I go on shows like yours and across the state, I've been on radio shows and television explaining the bill. I'm hoping more and more people, because the people themselves, and we did polls, over 80% of the people for it. So they need to tell their legislators that they want them to support this bill, because it is a good government bill. And when they know that the people are behind it, I think some of these legislators will come around and actually vote for it.
Now, can you say what their objection was when they voiced it? Did anybody voice it, or did they just say, nope, we don't want this?
No, a couple of the myths surrounding this bill is, one is that it'll increase voter intimidation. And the opposite is actually true. This bill actually helps prevent voter intimidation, because, as I said, poll watchers cannot interact with the voters. I can only interact with the judge of elections. Right. So if they see someone intimidating, they can themselves report that to the judge of elections. If they themselves started to intimidate or get out of hand, they'll be thrown out. They could be escorted out of the polling place. So it actually helps prevent, not increase intimidation. Another myth that surrounded the bill was some of my Democratic colleagues were saying that there'll be bands of roving poll watchers, cruising the state and causing mischief. No, the law still stays the same about who can be a poll watcher and how they get invited into the polling place. And as I said, they have to be invited by a candidate and then one by the party. So itinerant poll watchers busing in from all over and going into polling places is outside the law already, and my bill does nothing to change that. So the unions are against it. I think that was a big problem. So many of the Democrats probably voted against it because the unions have come out against it. But again, I think if we look at it objectively, we should see that this is a good government bill, and we should all be for it.
So amazing, Rick. Where I vote, the same people have been there forever. I can't even fathom how there would be, a sudden huge throng of volunteers to poll watch. It's so amazing to me. It just seems like unfounded fear.
It is. It's an unfounded fear. But you can imagine there's some polling places. I mean, Philadelphia itself, I think, has 1,700 polling places. So You can imagine out of that, there might be some polling places that there could be problems. In my district, there were a couple polling places where we had problems. But again, when we had poll watchers there, the problems disappeared. People calmed down and they said, okay, people are paying attention and we should go follow the rules. So it has a calming effect, a great deterrent effect. It's already in the law. All I'm doing is broadening the pool from where the poll watchers can be picked from, and that's a safe thing. It's a no nonsense, common sense bill. It changes very little in the law, but it'll help fill us. But you know how hard it is to get volunteers these days to do things. When you have a lot of polls like that, you have to find volunteers to work shifts and go in there. It's hard to find volunteers. I'm just trying to broaden the pool so that we have more people to choose from to fill those slots.
All right. Now, I imagine that this might meet with some success in the Senate, but what will happen with the governor? Do you have an inkling?
The governor said he would veto it, and they're disappointed to hear that. But from my perspective, good government hasn't been a strong suit of this administration, so I didn't expect anything different. But I'm hoping that he'll come around. Hoping when he sees the actual facts and elements of the bill, that he'll say, you know what, this is a good idea, and I would welcome him to sign on and help us to support this bill.
State Rep Rick Saccone, great to have you on the show today to talk about this. It seems to make sense, but we'll see where it goes from here. So fight the good fight, as we always say.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure being on your show.